Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the French Property Focus podcast. Today, we're going to talk about three very French experiences I had this week. Spoiler alert, one of them involves not actually physically being in France. And we're going to talk about what the Zillow guide to buying a property in the US would look like if you transferred it into buying a property in France. Okay, so what are the three French experiences I'm going to talk about? Well, this week we had my wife's parents visiting from the US. So we've been out and about and done some day trips. The first thing we did was to visit an outdoor food market. You might call it a farmer's market. Very French, something I loved about visiting France before we moved here, and it's still something that I love about living in France now that we do live here. So, market day is always busy, and we got there around lunchtime, so it was a bit of a miracle that we managed to get a table at a little cafe in the middle of the market. I could see lots of people eating oysters, and we wanted some. It was in the sunshine, it looked great, but they weren't on the menu at the cafe. This happens a lot, and this isn't somewhere I know particularly well. It's a couple of hours away from where we live. But we checked with the waitress, and she confirmed that as long as you're at least ordering drinks there, you can go to the oyster stall in the market, buy them direct from the producer, and eat them at the cafe. Amazing. You know you're getting fresh oysters straight from the producer, but you get to have them at the cafe. Super French experience to me. And if you didn't know, you might not realise you could. So if you are at a French market this summer, now you'll know. The second thing, on our way back from the beach, we drove past a châteaux and we decided to stop and see what was going on. So they had a cave with a shop for tasting the wines or to do a degustation. Wine tasting in a château, again, to me, very French experience. Now, my wife's mother saw a sign about the wine experiences which included tastings that were paid, and she was a bit put off. Here's the thing though, wine tasting in France is almost always free, and it was here too when we asked. The paid options were for gourmet wine and food tastings that you had to book in advance. They didn't have a sign for the free degustations, because it's kind of assumed most places you go. If you do go somewhere and it's paid, my advice would be to walk away. Unless it's somewhere really, really special and it's something you particularly want to do. There's always somewhere else where it's free. And honestly, really great wineries do free tastings. It's normal. That's not the same across the rest of Europe. For instance, most times I've been in Spain, I found that it is paid. And in Italy, my experience has been a bit more mixed. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Okay, so this brings me on to my French experience that involves me not physically being in France. So this does depend on where you're based in France, but one great thing is the possibility to do a road trip to another country, Spain or Italy. No border, it's all in the Schengen zone, just drive on through, amazing. So we popped to Spain, jumped in the sea, ate some tapas, and then came back to France. Anyway, enough about my days out, we're here to talk about buying French property. So in the last podcast, we talked about there being no MLS in France, and what that actually means for you. But there are lots of differences you might not realise. So we thought, why not start at what Zillow says about buying in the US and go through what to look out for because things are so different. So the first step in the Zillow guide is to check your credit score and see what your financing options are. Okay, so this is fundamentally different. There is no credit score system in France. The mortgage broker or bank will request lots of documents from you, and it's generally more of a case-by-case decision. Now, you will see people online say that Americans can't get a French mortgage. Just to debunk that myth, it's not true. It might be that they couldn't get a mortgage, and that's why some of the free info online can be limited, particularly where the person giving that information just has one experience, and that may not relate to your situation. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy if you want to get a mortgage, but I am saying that it could be possible. If you're looking for a French mortgage and not getting anywhere, feel free to send us an email, info@frenchpropertyfocus.com. I'd be happy to introduce you to a broker. They'll ask you some basic information and give you an indication as to whether or not it might be an option, or whether it's just a non-starter. Let's debunk a couple of other myths around this topic whilst we're on it. You might see people say that as an American, you need to have a French bank account before you buy a property in France. You don't. You just need to be able to transfer the euros to the notaire's account. It's going to make your life easier, probably, to sign up for utilities and stuff like that if you do have a French bank account, but you don't actually need one to buy the property in the first place. Another thing we see quite a lot is people moving to France to change their life. Sometimes that means they want to leave their job and start a B&B or a gîte or something like that. But essentially the property they buy, the plan is that it's going to be income producing, or they're buying one that already is income producing. Now, lots of people expect to be able to finance that with a French bank based on the future income of that business. Sounds reasonable, right? Sadly, it's almost impossible. If this is you, you might need to start thinking around the problem, because it's pretty unlikely that as an individual a French bank will lend to you on this basis. Okay, what's the next step in the Zillow guide? Well, it says to budget for your purchase and decide on your wish list for your new property. So this is pretty much the same, with a few changes. The one big cost you'll need to budget for in France that's not included in the list price is the notaire fees. They're always in addition to the list price. They cover the cost of putting together the legal documentation and also the French government taxes on the transaction. They vary based on the price of the property, the department the property is located in, and whether or not it's a new build. So the buyer always pays the notaire fees in France. You can use a different notaire to the seller. You'll pay for both, but it costs the same whether there's one or two involved. If there's two involved, they just share the fees for the legal work. You can always find an English-speaking notaire and use an English-speaking notaire if you want to. If anyone is telling you you have to use this one notaire that only speaks French, don't believe them, it's not true. If you can't find an English-speaking notaire, again, feel free to send us an email, info@frenchpropertyfocus.com. I'd be happy to suggest several to you. The notaire you use doesn't have to be based where the property is. It can all be done over video with electronic signatures. We had a sale one time where at the final signing, neither the seller or the buyer attended in person, and everybody was just waiting for the notaire to email to say that he'd signed for both parties and that the deal had actually gone through. So Zillow is now back to the financing. Their step 3 is to get pre-approval for your financing. So what happens in France at this stage? Well, in France, as we've discussed, there's no credit scoring system the way there is in the US. Furthermore, most banks, with very minor exceptions, cannot and will not share data across banks. So each application to a different bank or mortgage broker will need to be treated on its own. The records and documentation required by most French banks are far beyond what you would consider normal in the US. There's a reason why many American and international buyers end up working with mortgage brokers who can help navigate this process. If your mortgage or loan is approved, you'll receive what's called a simulation rather than a firm pre-approval. Yes, that's a real word for this specific context. The critical difference means your financing can fall through even after signing the preliminary purchase agreement. Purchase contracts with a mortgage contingencies are usually included automatically for 2 to 3 month waiting period. If your financing falls through, once you've proved that you've approached 1 to 3 banks, you can withdraw from the purchase without losing your deposit. For this reason, sellers view offers with mortgage financing often as much riskier and less attractive than cash offers. The extended timeline and uncertainty of obtaining a French loan or mortgage is a significant reason why cash offers are strongly preferred in the French market. In fact, you'll find some sellers refuse to allow visits with buyers who don't have cash funds in the bank ready to invest. On the cash offers point, there's a significant difference between France and the US. In France, you can't bid over asking price, so you really can't get into a bidding war. I've seen people say online that if you offer asking price, the seller has to accept your offer. That's not quite true, and I'll explain why. So the contract the real estate agent and the seller have in place will likely have some clause that says if the real estate agent brings a cash buyer who makes a full list price offer, they've completed their mission. And therefore, the seller needs to pay their fee whether or not they accept the offer. In practice, nobody wants to pay the fee and not have the money from making the sale, so the offer is usually accepted. I have seen cases, though, where a full list price offer in cash hasn't been accepted. In one case, because the sellers bonded with a different buyer who offered lower and with financing, but they wanted to sell to them. The real estate agent in that case could have sued for the fees, but decided that it's not a good look to sue your sellers in open court, so generally that doesn't happen. Actually, that story is one of the ones included in our free masterclass. It covers some mistakes that we've seen people make so that you don't have to make them. You can watch it for free on our website. I'll put the link in the description to this podcast. So the next couple of Zillow steps are around picking your real estate agent and starting your search online. Now, if you listen to the last podcast, it was all about there being no MLS in France. So these two steps are totally different because of this. I'm not going to go over it all again, but just to say, you're probably not going to just work with one real estate agent, and you're definitely not going to look on one website at listings, because there just isn't one place you can look. If you've already made contact with an agent in France and you're sending them properties that you like the look of from one of the aggregator sites, and they're not super responsive, it might be because the real estate agency they're tied to doesn't have any of those listings. If that's the case, they can't give you any more information. Generally, there is no fee-sharing arrangement between different real estate agencies. If some or all of this is news to you, you're definitely not alone. I get it. Most American buyers we've interacted with have started at a similar place. Because of this, the one thing we've just started is a membership. We've just opened this up for people to become founder members. If you sign up now, you'll get to keep the current monthly price, even when the price goes up. You can tell us what you want to see and what you're interested in, and it gives you the chance to make the membership what you want it to be. As a member, we're going to do live monthly call where you get the chance to ask me your questions and get them answered, and also you get to see what everyone else is asking. We're also including topic-specific message boards where you'll be able to interact with other members just like you. I know that there are free Facebook groups where you can join, and you can also do that, but honestly, my experience is that they attract a certain crowd who have a lot to say, but with little or no experience to base that on. Our aim is that with a small monthly fee, you're more likely to get people who are really engaged, and that will be more beneficial for everyone. As a member, we're also going to include some of our paid content each month, a lesson or two from an online course or a chapter from a paid guide. We're also working on including some curated searches to try and make the online search more easy. I've put the link with more information in the description to this podcast. Go and check it out, make sure you sign up. Okay, so there are 5 more Zillow steps that cover making an offer, home inspections and closing. If you want to find out what the French versions would be, you can download the free guide. It includes the 5 we've covered here and the final 5. I've put the link where you can download it from our website for free in the description to the podcast. Make sure you go and download it. There's so many differences though. You could spend months working it out, trial and error, going through lots of free resources, contacting lots of agents, getting piecemeal answers on how things work, and eventually, you're smart people, you would understand a lot more how it worked. But it might take you several months, might take you 6 months. If you haven't got time to waste, there's another option. We have an online course which is all about optimizing your search. It takes you through the differences. It takes you through all the different ways you can optimize the searches on the different websites, interact with agents, how best to get the best responses and how to work with them the best. If you did the full course online and you read everything that's included in it, maybe it'll take you 2 hours, but it will save you maybe months of your own time and not wasting it. It's not a cheap course, and I don't apologise for that. There's a lot of work that's gone into it. But if you could get to a place that from now that you get to in 6 months for free, or you could get there in 2 hours with a paid course, and that sounds like something that you would like because you don't have time to waste, I've put the link to the course which shares much more information about it in the description to this podcast too. Thanks so much for listening to another podcast, and I hope to see you next time.